For the first minute of this guide, stay with me, because what you're about to hear is something most farmers will never admit to using, even though nearly all of them rely on it when their soil turns stubborn, barren, or exhausted. Every grower who's been working the land long enough eventually discovers that there are quiet, almost secret techniques passed down through families, through old homesteads, through farmers who learned by necessity rather than textbooks. They don't brag about these methods because they aren't flashy, they aren't modern, and they certainly aren't the kind of thing manufacturers want you talking about. This one involves worms, not the fishing store kind, but the workhorse earthworms that shaped agriculture long before fertilizer bags existed. And the trick is so reliable that entire beds can shift from lifeless to thriving without a single drop of chemical input. This is the part many viewers misunderstand. The most powerful soil amendment isn't something you buy, it's something you attract. And the moment you understand how farmers quietly summon armies of earthworms into depleted ground, you unlock an advantage past generations guarded closely. What you're about to learn is a blend of historical practice and simple biological truth. It's not fancy, it's not mystical, but it works every single time. The trick begins with feeding the soil in a way worms cannot resist. The core of this method is extremely straightforward. Worms are drawn to decomposition the way bees are drawn to nectar. Farmers who know this use a baiting technique hidden right under everyday tasks. They bury a concentrated pocket of soft, fast-rotting organic matter directly in the planting zone. Not compost, not aged manure, but the raw food scraps that rot quickly and generate heat, scent, and microbial bloom. When the scraps begin to break down, they create a hotspot underground. Microbes multiply explosively. Worms detect this activity from surprising distances, and they move toward it in waves. Once a worm arrives, it stays, feeds, tunnels, reproduces, and aerates the soil while leaving vermicast behind. This is the quiet engine behind almost every rejuvenated bed you've seen on an old farm. To use this principle yourself, just take a handful of decomposable kitchen scraps, like melon rinds, wilted greens, cabbage cores, or even leftover cooked rice. Dig a hole about 6 to 8 inches deep in your bed or field. Then deposit the scraps whole, just as they are. Make sure you cover them fully with soil and give the spot a light watering. Over the next week or so, that buried pocket becomes a real worm magnet. The secret works because, well, worms prefer intact food over compost. This is the part experienced farmers never really explain, you know. Compost is already partially broken down, so while it does nourish plants, it doesn't create the same intense biological surge worms crave. Worms want the early stages of decomposition, when the material is still identifiable but softening up a bit. When buried whole rather than mixed, the scraps release gases and moisture gradually, creating a predictable timeline of microbial activity. Worms follow the progression like a trail, moving deeper into the bed and, well, establishing permanent residence. It's a strategy ancient farmers unknowingly perfected by burying kitchen waste, crop residues and even fish remains right in their growing zones. The method worked across civilizations because worms respond to decomposition universally. Now, If you're working with clay soil, this trick opens up the ground faster than tilling ever could, honestly. In sandy soil, it provides pockets of moisture and organic density that really improve water retention. And for those stubborn hardpan layers, repeated application of these buried pockets slowly breaks up the compacted zone as worms tunnel through it. It's remarkable how well it works, I must say. Once the worms arrive, they begin repairing the soil automatically. What shocked me the first time I tried this wasn't just the fact that worms showed up. It was how dramatically they changed the soil within a month. Areas that had been resistant to water suddenly absorbed it deeply. Roots travelled farther and branched more confidently. And, well, the soil turned darker, richer and crumbly in ways that normally take seasons to achieve. This all happens because worms do three critical tasks perfectly. They process organic matter into vermiculture, which is, without a doubt, one of the most nutrient-dense natural fertilizers on Earth. They aerate the soil through constant tunneling, which improves oxygen flow and drainage. And they spread microbes evenly through the root zone, accelerating decomposition and nutrient cycling in a way no tool, amendment or machine can replicate. It's really quite something to witness. For practical use, you'll want to bury the scrap pockets near heavy feeders like corn tomatoes or squash. Space the pockets a foot or two apart, depending on your bed size. Over time, the worm population grows so rapidly that the entire bed becomes biologically active. If you keep up with this practice every month, you can transform even heavily abused soil into productive ground without needing any external fertilizer. The trick becomes even more powerful when you pair it with moisture management. Worms thrive when moisture is consistent but not excessive. Farmers who mastered this trick often paired their buried food pockets with a surface mulch layer. This keeps the soil cool, prevents drying, and creates the conditions worms prefer. Once inside a bed treated this way, worms rarely leave, and every tunnel they build becomes a pathway for water during drought and a drainage channel during heavy rain. To apply this, add a thin mulch layer of dried grass-shredded leaves or straw above the burial site. Keep the area watered enough that the soil stays damp, especially in the first week. The combination of buried food and top mulch creates a dual-zone habitat worms cannot resist. The most surprising part is how quietly effective this trick is. Farmers don't talk about this method because it's simple, free and rooted in knowledge older than modern agriculture. No one profits from it except the land itself. Yet time and again, when a field begins to fail, someone on the farm quietly buries food scraps, checks the soil a month later and finds it alive again. This isn't a gimmick. It isn't theory. It's a biological partnership as old as farming itself. The worm trick works because it respects the natural decomposition cycle that built soils long before humans tried to manage them. If you want more guides rooted in historical truths and survival-level practicality, subscribe to Hydro Haven, share this video with fellow growers, and help keep this kind of time-tested knowledge circulating where it belongs, among people who actually work the land.